Returning right now to a Sun News exclusive, Attawapiskat Chief Teresa Spence has entertained a special guest at her Victoria Island teepee. Sun News Network was there when Liberal leadership candidate Justin Trudeau paid Spence a visit this morning. The First Nations leader is in the third week of a hunger strike as she's demanding to talk with the Prime Minister and Governor General. Brigitte Pellerin is following this story and she joins us live in our Parliamentary Bureau. Brigitte.
Good day to you, Kathy. Yes, it pays sometimes to be tenacious. This is not something, Chief Spence has been on a hunger strike, she says, since December 11th, has been fairly shy with the media so far. And we showed up earlier this morning and gently talked our way into, being near her teepee. And then we just realized that Justin Trudeau was showing up as well to come to speak with the chief. He invited himself apparently yesterday, offered to come and visit and listen, especially this is what he said. He came to listen. And then the meeting lasted about 45 minutes. Then I had a chance to interview both Chief Spence and Justin Trudeau about their meeting. So first of all, I asked Chief Spence, because you may be wondering, well, why is it that she's turning down the requests for meetings with the Indian Affairs Minister, John Duncan, but will meet with the leadership contender for the third party in Parliament? That's a good question. I had that on my mind too. Here's her answer.
It's what's the purpose of this hunger strike, and to tell the government that why is he afraid to have a meeting with us? Like it's a simple request. It's just for a meeting, and the way he's acting as if we're asking more than that. It's not me. It's the First Nation leaders, and I don't want to really meet with the Prime Minister himself, but I want the leaders to sit down on a table with the Prime Minister and the Crown and the both levels of the government.
Now, I also asked Justin Trudeau why come here? What did he try and accomplish with his meeting with Chief Spence? And this is what he had to say.
I didn't talk about an awful lot. I did a lot of listening. What was most important for me was to share with her the fact that this current Prime Minister doesn't speak for all Canadians, that many people are supporting her and supporting her request. That the Prime Minister meets with First Nations leaders and talk about the unfairness that exists across the country.
So there you go, Kathy. And Justin Trudeau, I have to say, he did not, I don't think he alerted anybody to this meeting, but he did not waste any time, though, after the meeting to tweet about it to his followers. So he told his followers the following on Twitter. This is what Justin Trudeau had to say. It was deeply moving to meet Chief Teresa today. She is willing to sacrifice everything for her people. She shouldn't have to. Now, I did also ask the Chief Spence, because I know that yesterday the Indian Affairs Minister John Duncan sent her a letter saying that he was quite worried about her health because, as you know, being on a hunger strike is not something that's easy. So I asked her how she's doing, and she seems to be doing, she said she was doing fine. Now, I'm not a doctor also, but I could tell you that just talking to her, she seems to be doing quite well indeed. And she's not on a complete hunger strike, as my understanding is that she does get some tea and some fish broth is what I was told.
You know what strikes me as odd, Brigitte? Justin Trudeau actually granted us an interview.
Yes, well, that was nice. Well, I was quite nice to him about that. And you see, there you go. I managed to, speak with him. And the interview was a bit longer. And I'll be writing also, of course, a story about that, about exactly. One of the questions that I asked him is, we know that Marc Garneau wrote an open letter to the Prime Minister, saying that he was in support of Chief Spence and certainly of having a meeting. Here's what he said. Across the country, Canadians are calling for meaningful action to support this woman. I ask you to take the next step to building the renewed understanding we promised and grant Chief Spence and First Nations leadership a meeting to plan a course of action respecting the treatment of Aboriginal peoples. Now, Chief Spence will tell you, and she did insist about that this was not about her meeting the Prime Minister and the Crown. This was about First Nations leaders meeting with the Crown and the Prime Minister. This was not just about her, so she insists very strongly on that. And it seems like, Marc Garneau is also in favor of that. So is Thomas Mulcair. So that was the question also that I asked of Justin Trudeau. Obviously, perhaps he didn't want to be left behind his competitor in the leadership race with the Liberal Party or the official opposition. And he didn't really say that that wasn't the case. So I think we'll leave it at that. Yes, he doesn't want to be left behind.
Definitely a developing story, and thanks for bringing us the latest, Brigitte.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brigitte. That was Brigitte Pellerin in our Ottawa studios.